I thought I knew what betrayal felt like. Turns out I had no idea until the night my stepbrother Garrett stabbed me at 2 in the morning. The blade went deep into my left shoulder, missing my artery by inches. But what hurt more than the steel cutting through my flesh was watching my own mother and stepfather laugh at me in that hospital bed. They thought their golden boy would walk free. They were wrong. Before we dive into how one night changed everything and exposed the truth my family tried to bury, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe, because this story proves that justice, even when delayed, still finds its way. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Marion, and I am 26 years old. My parents divorced when I was 12, and honestly, it was for the best. My mom remarried Richard when I turned 14, and Richard brought his son Garrett into our lives. Garrett was 2 years younger than me, just 12 at the time. In the beginning, things were not terrible. My mom seemed happy, and I wanted that for her. I tried to accept this new family setup, even though it felt strange having a stepbrother suddenly sharing my space. Garrett seemed friendly enough at first. We played video games together sometimes, and he would ask me about school. Richard was polite but distant. He provided for the family, worked long hours, and mostly stayed out of my way. I focused on my studies, worked part-time jobs throughout high school, and eventually got into a decent college for software engineering. I paid my own tuition through scholarships, loans, and working nearly full-time while studying. It was exhausting, but I was proud of my independence. By the time I graduated and landed a solid job as a software engineer, I was 24. I moved back home temporarily to save money for my own place. I know some people judge that, but housing prices in our area were insane. I paid my mom and Richard rent every month about $600, plus I covered my own food and contributed to utilities. It seemed fair. Garrett was 22 by then, still living at home, but he was not working. He had dropped out of community college after one semester and spent most of his time in his room playing games or hanging out with friends I never met. At first, I did not think much of it. Everyone moves at their own pace, right? But as months went by, I started noticing things. Garrett never contributed anything to the household. No rent, no chores, nothing. When I asked my mom about it, she would say, "Garrett is still figuring things out. He needs time to find his passion." Meanwhile, I was working 50-hour weeks, coming home exhausted, and still expected to help with dishes and yard work. The inequality started to bother me more and more. I'd worked my tail off to pay for college. Garrett got everything handed to him, all his tuition, paid a car, gifted on his 18th birthday, spending money whenever he asked. When I needed a car, I bought a used one with money I saved from working at a grocery store. I was not bitter about working hard. I actually liked earning my own way. But the blatant favoritism stung. Things got worse when Garrett started borrowing my stuff without asking. One time, I came home to find him using my laptop. He had spilled soda on the keyboard, and several keys stopped working. When I confronted him, he shrugged and said, "It was an accident, chill out." I looked at Richard, expecting him to say something, but instead, Richard told me, "It is just a laptop, Marion. Do not be so uptight. Accidents happen." Just a laptop. That laptop had all my work files on it. I had to spend $300. I did not have to get it repaired. Garrett never apologized, never offered to pay. My mom just patted my shoulder and said, "Your brother did not mean it. You know he can be careless sometimes. Your brother." That phrase always felt forced. Garrett was not my brother. We shared no blood, no history before our parents married, and increasingly no respect. Another time, Garrett borrowed my car without asking. I had taken the bus to work that day because my car was not in the driveway where I left it. I called my mom, panicked, thinking it was stolen. She casually told me Garrett needed it to meet some friends. He brought it back 8 hours later with a dent in the rear bumper and the gas tank empty. When I asked what happened, he said he bumped a pole in a parking lot. No apology. No offer to fix it. Richard actually got annoyed at me for being upset. It is just a small dent. You're making a big deal out of nothing. I felt invisible in my own family. Every achievement I earned was treated as expected. Got a promotion at work. That is nice, dear. I paid off a chunk of my student loans. Good for you. But if Garrett did anything remotely productive, like applying for a job or cleaning his room, my mom and Richard acted like he had cured cancer. Look at Garrett being so responsible. We are so proud of you, son. It was nauseating. I kept telling myself it would not be much longer. I had been saving aggressively. Just a few more months and I would have enough for a down payment on a small condo. I could move out, get away from this bizarre dynamic, and live my own life. I held on to that goal like a lifeline. About 4 months before the incident, Garrett changed. He became more aggressive, more unpredictable. He started drinking heavily. I would hear him stumbling in at 3 or 4 in the morning, knocking into walls, cursing loudly. When I mentioned it to my mom, asking if she was worried about his drinking, she brushed it off. He is just going through a tough time. He will figure it out. Richard said Garrett was stressed about finding a job which was rich, considering Garrett had not seriously looked for work in over a year. The tension in the house grew thick. Garrett started asking me for money. The first time he said he needed $40 for gas. I gave it to him assuming he would pay me back. He never did. The second time he wanted $100 for an emergency. I asked what kind of emergency and he got defensive. Why do you need to know everything? Can you just help me out or not? I said no. I was not a bank and I was tired of being used. Garrett exploded. He screamed at me, called me selfish, said I thought I was better than everyone because I had a job. He swept a bunch of mail off the kitchen counter onto the floor and stormed out. I expected my mom or Richard to say something to tell him that behavior was unacceptable. Instead, my mom sighed and said, "Marion, you really upset him. Could you not have just lent him the money? You make good money now?" I could not believe what I was hearing. I left the room before I said something I would regret. After that, Garrett barely spoke to me. When he did, it was with hostility. He would make snide comments when I walked by. Must be nice being perfect. Or, some of us do not have everything handed to us like you. The irony was staggering. I had worked for everything I had. He had been given everything and squandered it. Then I got promoted. My boss called me into her office on a Wednesday afternoon and told me I was being moved up to senior engineer with a significant raise. I was thrilled. This meant I could move out even sooner, maybe within 2 months. That evening, I decided to share the good news at dinner. My mom had cooked pasta, and we all sat around the table. I told them about the promotion and the raise. I was smiling, hopeful they would be happy for me. My mom gave me a small smile and said, "That is wonderful, honey." But her tone was flat distracted. Richard nodded and went back to eating. Then Garrett looked up from his plate, his eyes cold. "You think you are so great, do you not? You think you are better than everyone here." The table went silent. I stared at him stunned. "I never said that, Garrett." I was just sharing good news. He pushed his chair back, the legs scraping loudly against the floor. Whatever. I am done listening to you brag. He left the kitchen and slammed his bedroom door so hard, a picture frame fell off the hallway wall. I looked at my mom and Richard, waiting for them to say something to defend me, or at least acknowledge how inappropriate Garrett was being. They said nothing, just kept eating. That was when I realized I was truly alone in this house. The following 2 weeks were ice cold. Garrett avoided me completely. When we crossed paths, he would glare or mutter under his breath. I started keeping my bedroom door locked even during the day. Something felt off. I could not shake the feeling that things were about to get worse. I was right. It happened on a Thursday night. I had worked late, finishing a project deadline, and did not get home until about 1:30 in the morning. The house was dark and quiet. Everyone was asleep. I went upstairs, brushed my teeth, changed into a t-shirt and shorts, and climbed into bed. I was exhausted, and sleep came quickly. I woke suddenly to a noise in the hallway. It sounded like shuffling something being moved. I checked my phone. It was 1:58 a.m. I got out of bed and opened my door quietly, peering into the dim hallway. That is when I saw Garrett crouched next to my backpack, which I had left near the bathroom door. His back was to me, and he was rummaging through it. My heart started pounding. "What are you doing?" I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Garrett jumped and spun around. His eyes were wide, but not scared. Angry. "None of your business," he snapped. I could see my wallet in his hand. "That is my wallet. Give it back." I stepped toward him. He stood up fast, clutching my wallet. "Back off, Marion." His voice was low, threatening. "Give me my wallet, Garrett." I reached for it, and he shoved me hard in the chest. I stumbled back a step, but did not fall. Anger surged through me. I grabbed his wrist, trying to pry my wallet out of his hand. We struggled for a moment, both of us breathing hard. Then Garrett shouted, "Get off me." I heard my mom's bedroom door open down the hall, and then I saw it. Garrett reached into his pocket with his free hand and pulled out a knife. It was not a big knife, maybe a 4-inch blade, but in the dim light of the hallway it looked huge. My mind went blank with shock. "Garrett, what are you—" I did not finish the sentence. He lunged forward and drove the knife into my left shoulder. The pain was instant and overwhelming. I gasped and fell backward, hitting the wall and sliding down to the floor. Blood started soaking through my shirt immediately. Garrett stood there for a second, staring at the knife in his hand like he could not believe what he had just done. Then he dropped it and ran into his room, slamming the door. I could not breathe. I pressed my hand against the wound and blood seeped through my fingers. I tried to yell, but my voice came out weak. "Help! Somebody help me!" My mom appeared at the end of the hallway, Richard right behind her. She saw me on the floor, saw the blood, and screamed. Richard ran to me, his face pale. "What happened? What happened?" he kept asking. "Garrett," I gasped. "Garrett stabbed me." My mom was already on the phone with 911, her hands shaking. Richard looked at Garrett's closed door, then back at me. That cannot be right. Garrett would not do that. Even as I was bleeding on the floor, he was defending him. My mom finished the call and knelt next to me, pressing a towel against my shoulder. She was crying, but when I said again, "Garrett did this," she shook her head. "You must have provoked him. What did you do to make him so angry?" I could not believe it. I was the one bleeding, possibly dying, and she was blaming me. The paramedics arrived within 10 minutes. They loaded me onto a stretcher, and as they carried me down the stairs, I saw Garrett peeking out from his bedroom door. He looked scared, but he did not come out. He did not apologize. He just watched. The emergency room was chaos. Doctors and nurses rushed around me, cutting off my shirt, hooking me up to machines. The pain was unbelievable. A doctor told me the knife had gone deep, nearly hitting my subclavian artery. If it had, I could have bled out in minutes. They prepped me for surgery immediately. I remember being wheeled into the operating room, the lights blinding, and then nothing. I woke up several hours later in a recovery room. My shoulder was bandaged, my arm in a sling, and I felt like I had been hit by a truck. A nurse checked my vitals and told me the surgery went well. I would need physical therapy, but I would recover fully. She left, and a police officer came in. He was middle-aged with kind eyes. He introduced himself as Officer Daniels and asked if I felt strong enough to answer some questions. I nodded. I told him everything. How I woke up to Garrett going through my bag. How I confronted him. How he pulled a knife and stabbed me. Officer Daniels took notes, his expression serious. When I finished, he said they would go to my house and arrest Garrett. I felt relief and dread at the same time. Relief that he would face consequences. Dread because I knew this would destroy my family. About an hour later, Officer Daniels returned. He said Garrett had been arrested without incident. He was in custody and would be charged with assault with a deadly weapon. I thanked him, my voice barely a whisper. After he left, I lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to process everything. My own stepbrother had stabbed me. My own family had blamed me while I bled. My mom and Richard showed up at the hospital around noon. I expected them to be worried to apologize for doubting me, to ask how I was feeling. Instead, my mom walked in with red eyes and immediately said, "How could you call the police on Garrett? This is a family matter. We could have handled this privately." I stared at her speechless. Richard stood behind her, arms crossed. "You have ruined his life, Marion. Do you understand that he is going to have a criminal record because of you? Because of me. Not because he stabbed me. Because I reported it." I felt something break inside me. "He stabbed me, Mom. He could have killed me." She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "You must have done something to set him off. Garrett is not violent. You pushed him too far." Richard nodded in agreement. "If you do not drop the charges, you are no longer welcome in our home. Do you hear me? You are tearing this family apart." I could not speak. I just turned my head away from them. After a few minutes of silence, they left. They did not stay to make sure I was okay. They did not ask if I needed anything. They just left. I was alone in that hospital bed, and for the first time in my life I truly understood what it meant to be abandoned by the people who were supposed to love you. Over the next 3 days, I stayed in the hospital. Friends from work came to visit. My old college roommate drove 2 hours to see me. But my family, silence. Not a single call or text from my mom. Then, on the 3rd day, I got a notification on my phone. My mom had posted on social media. I opened it, and my stomach turned. She had written a long post about how her son was going through a difficult time and asking for prayers. She painted Garrett as the victim, saying he was struggling with mental health and made a mistake. She did not mention me at all. Not once. The comments were filled with support for Garrett. People I had known for years, neighbors, family friends, all saying they were praying for him. I felt sick. I shut off my phone and cried. not from physical pain but from the betrayal. Richard had hired an expensive lawyer for Garrett and posted bail. Garrett was out within 48 hours of being arrested. Meanwhile, I got text messages. From Richard. "You have embarrassed this family. Garrett was only defending himself. You are selfish and vindictive." From my mom. "I cannot believe you are doing this. You are no longer my son. Do not contact me again." And then from Garrett himself. "You are going to regret this. I promise you that." I saved every message. Something told me I would need them. When I was finally discharged from the hospital, I called a friend and asked if I could stay with him for a while. He said yes without hesitation. I took an Uber to my house to grab some clothes and essentials. When I got there, all my belongings were piled on the front lawn. My clothes, my books, my laptop, everything. The locks had been changed. I stood there staring at the pile, feeling numb. A neighbor saw me and came over looking uncomfortable. She said Richard had put my stuff out that morning. I thanked her quietly and started loading things into my friend's car. That night, lying on an air mattress in my friend's spare room, I made a decision. I was not going to let Garrett get away with this. I was not going to let my family protect him while I suffered. I was going to fight. The preliminary hearing was set for 3 weeks later. Garrett's lawyer was slick expensive and clearly very good at his job. During the hearing, he argued that Garrett had acted in self-defense. He claimed I had attacked Garrett first, that Garrett feared for his safety, and that the stabbing was an unfortunate but necessary response. I sat there listening, my blood boiling. It was all lies. Then my mom and Richard took the stand as character witnesses for Garrett. My own mother sat in that courtroom and told the judge that I had always been aggressive, that I had a temper, that Garrett was a gentle person who would never hurt anyone unless threatened. Richard backed her up, saying I had been jealous of Garrett for years, and that I likely started the fight. I could not breathe. I looked at them, and they would not meet my eyes. But I saw something worse. As I was giving my testimony describing how Garrett had gone through my bag and stabbed me, I glanced at my mom and Richard in the gallery. They were whispering to each other. And then I saw it. They smiled. Not a big smile, but a smirk, like they found my pain amusing. Like they did not believe a word I was saying. That moment hurt more than the knife ever did. The judge set a trial date for 2 months later. Garrett walked out of the courthouse with his lawyer, my mom, and Richard on either side of him. They looked confident, almost smug. They thought they had won. But I was not done. I hired my own lawyer, a woman named Miss Patterson. She was tough, sharp, and did not take nonsense from anyone. I told her everything, and she listened carefully. Then she asked, "Do you have any evidence? Anything that can prove your side of the story?" I thought for a moment. Then I remembered. About a year ago, I had installed a small security camera in the hallway upstairs. I did it because we had some break-ins in the neighborhood, and I wanted to make sure we had coverage if anything happened. I had not thought about it since. I told Ms. Patterson, and her eyes lit up. "Can you get access to that footage?" I nodded. "It is stored on a cloud server. I still have the login." That night I accessed the footage. I found the date and time of the incident, and watched. The video was grainy but clear enough. It showed Garrett crouched by my bag, pulling out my wallet. It showed me opening my door, confronting him, reaching for my wallet. It showed him shoving me grabbing his wrist, and then him pulling the knife and stabbing me. There was no attack from me, no provocation, just Garrett stealing from me and stabbing me when I tried to stop him. I downloaded the footage and sent it to Ms. Patterson. She called me within an hour. "This changes everything, Marion. This is solid evidence. We are going to win this case." I also reached out to people who knew Garrett. I found out things I had never known. Garrett had a prior assault charge from 2 years ago at a bar. Richard had paid off the victim to drop the charges, so it never went to court. Garrett owed money to several people, debts from gambling that had been piling up. One guy told me Garrett owed him $3,000 from poker games. Another said Garrett had threatened him when he asked for his money back. It all made sense now. Garrett had not been going through my bag randomly. He needed money to pay off his debts, and he was stealing from me. When I caught him, he panicked and attacked me. Miss Patterson compiled everything: the video, the witness statements, the threatening text messages Garrett sent me after the arrest. We had a strong case, and she was confident, but I was terrified. What if the jury believed my mom and Richard? What if they thought I was lying? The trial date arrived. I walked into that courtroom feeling like I was going to be sick. Garrett sat at the defense table in a suit looking clean-cut and innocent. My mom and Richard sat behind him, their faces set in grim determination. They still believed he would walk free. The prosecution went first. They presented the medical evidence, photos of my wound, doctor testimony about how deep the knife went, how close I came to dying. Then it was Ms. Patterson's turn. She stood up confident and calm. "Your Honor, I would like to present video evidence from the night of the incident." The courtroom went silent. Garrett's lawyer looked confused. My mom and Richard exchanged glances. Miss Patterson played the video on a large screen. Everyone watched. You could hear a pin drop. The video showed everything exactly as I had described. Garrett going through my bag, me confronting him stabbing me. When it ended, Miss Patterson turned to the jury. As you can see, there was no self-defense. This was theft and assault. Garrett's face went pale. My mom looked like she had been slapped. Richard stared at the screen, his mouth open. The defense lawyer scrambled, trying to object, but the judge overruled him. The video was clear, undeniable evidence. Ms. Patterson continued. She presented the text messages, the threats Garrett had sent me. She brought in witnesses who testified about Garrett's gambling debts, his history of violence. She painted a picture of a young man who was reckless, entitled, and dangerous. By the time she finished, the case was over. Everyone in that room knew it. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, looked at Garrett with disgust. Then she looked at my mom and Richard. "I have been a judge for 25 years, she said, her voice hard. "And I have seen many things. But I have rarely seen parents so willing to protect a guilty child at the expense of an innocent one. Mr. Garrett, the evidence is clear. This was not self-defense. This was assault with a deadly weapon and attempted robbery. You are a danger to others, and you show no remorse." She paused, letting her words sink in. Then she looked at my mom and Richard again. And to the parents who tried to shield a criminal instead of seeking justice, you should be ashamed. Your actions have only enabled his behavior. Perhaps this sentence will teach him and you about accountability. The judge turned back to Garrett. "I hereby sentence you to 5 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for the first 3 years." The courtroom erupted. Garrett's lawyer started to argue, but the judge banged her gavel. "This court is adjourned." Garrett broke down sobbing. My mom screamed, "No, please, no." Richard sat frozen, unable to process what had just happened. I sat there quiet. I did not feel happy. I did not feel vindicated. I just felt tired. Justice had been served, but it had cost me my family. As I stood to leave, my mom caught my eye. She was crying, mascara running down her face. For a brief second, I thought I saw regret, but I turned away. It was too late for regrets. The days after the trial were strange. I moved into my own apartment, a small one-bedroom place that I could afford on my own now. It was not much, but it was mine. I went back to work, and my co-workers were supportive. They did not ask too many questions, which I appreciated. Slowly, I started to rebuild my life. About a week after the sentencing, my mom called me. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. She was crying, barely able to speak. "Marion, I am so sorry. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please forgive me." I listened, but I did not say anything. She continued. "I was blinded. I loved Garrett, and I could not see what he really was. I should have protected you. I should have believed you. I am so sorry." I took a deep breath. "I appreciate the apology, Mom, but I cannot just forget what happened. You chose him over me. You blamed me while I was bleeding. That is not something I can just move past." She sobbed harder. I know I do not deserve your forgiveness. But please, can we try? Can we start over?" I thought about it. Part of me wanted to hang up to cut her out of my life forever. But another part of me, the part that still remembered her reading to me as a kid, her making my favorite meals, that part wanted to believe people could change. "I can forgive you, Mom, but things can never be the same. I need time, and I need space." She agreed, and we ended the call. Over the next few months, she would text me occasionally. Just small things, asking how I was doing, telling me she was thinking of me. I would respond, but kept it brief. I was not ready to let her back in fully. Richard never reached out. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that he and my mom were having problems. Apparently, the trial had opened her eyes to a lot of things, and she resented Richard for pushing her to defend Garrett so fiercely. I did not know if they would stay together, and honestly, I did not care. That part of my life was over. As for me, I threw myself into healing. Not just physically, though my shoulder took months of physical therapy to regain full strength, but emotionally, too. I started seeing a therapist who specialized in family trauma. She helped me understand that what I experienced was not my fault, that I had every right to feel angry and hurt. She also helped me learn how to set boundaries, something I had never been good at. I joined a support group for survivors of family violence. Hearing other people's stories made me feel less alone. I realized how common it was for families to protect the abuser to blame the victim. It was not just me, and that in a weird way was comforting. I also reconnected with old friends, people I had lost touch with over the years. They welcomed me back without judgment, and I started building a new support system. I even started dating a woman I met at a coffee shop. She was kind, patient, and did not push me to talk about my past until I was ready. For the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about the future. One afternoon, about 6 months after the trial, I was sitting in my apartment when I got a letter. It was from Garrett. I almost threw it away without opening it, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a handwritten note. It said, "Marion, I know you probably hate me. I do not blame you. What I did was unforgivable. I've had a lot of time to think in here, and I realize how messed up I was. I was drowning in debt and addiction, and I took it out on you. That was not fair. You did not deserve any of it. I do not expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I am sorry. Truly sorry. I hope you are doing okay." Garrett. I read it twice. I did not know how to feel. Part of me wanted to believe he meant it. Part of me thought it was just him trying to ease his own guilt. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. Maybe one day I would respond. Maybe I would not. For now, I was focused on myself. I thought a lot about what had happened. About family, about loyalty, about justice. I used to think family meant everything, that blood was thicker than water, all those cliches. But I learned that family is not just about who you are related to. It is about who shows up for you, who believes you, who stands by you when things get hard. And sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. But that does not define your worth. I am not defined by what Garrett did to me or by my mom and Richard's betrayal. I am defined by how I responded. I stood up for myself. I demanded justice even when it cost me everything. And that took strength I did not know I had. Justice is not about revenge. It is not about making someone suffer because they hurt you. It is about standing up for what is right even when it is hard. Even when it means losing people you love. That night at 2 a.m. changed my life forever. It showed me the worst of humanity, but it also showed me the best. The friends who showed up at the hospital. The lawyer who fought for me. The judge who saw through the lies and delivered justice. I have learned to forgive not because the people who hurt me deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Holding on to anger and bitterness would only poison me. So I let it go. I forgave my mom, even though our relationship will never be the same. I even forgave Garrett in a way. Not for his sake, but for mine. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It does not mean allowing someone back into your life. It just means releasing the hold they have over you. I bought my own house a few months ago. It is small, just 2 bedrooms, but it is mine. I filled it with things I love, pictures of friends, books, a cozy couch. I wake up every morning in a place where I feel safe, where no one can hurt me. And that is worth more than anything. Sometimes I think about that night. I think about the sound of the knife hitting the floor, the look in Garrett's eyes, the blood on my hands. But I also think about the strength I found in the aftermath. The courage it took to stand in that courtroom and tell my truth. The resilience it took to rebuild my life from nothing. I am not the same person I was before that night. I am stronger. I am wiser. I know now that I do not need anyone's approval to know my worth. I know that the family you choose is just as important, if not more so, than the family you are born into. And I know that justice, even when it takes time, even when it costs you, everything is always worth fighting for. So, here I am, 27 now, living my life on my own terms. I still have bad days where the memories hit hard, and I feel that old anger creeping back. But most days are good. Most days I wake up grateful for the second chance I have been given. Grateful that I survived both physically and emotionally. And grateful that I had the courage to stand up for myself when no one else would. That is my story. It is not a fairy tale. There was no happy ending where everyone reconciled and lived happily ever after. But it is real. And it is mine. And I am proud of how far I have come. If you have ever been in a situation where family turned against you, where you had to choose between staying silent and demanding justice, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts. Have you ever had to stand up to your own family? How did you handle it? Let me know where you are watching from, and do not forget to hit that like button if this story resonated with you. Subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. We all have battles we fight in silence, and sometimes knowing you are not alone makes all the difference. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it brought you some comfort, some strength, or at least some perspective. Take care of yourselves out there, and remember that you are stronger than you think. Stay safe, stay strong, and never let anyone make you feel small.